Sound good? All right. Thank you all. Thank you, panelists.
Thanks, Christy, and the panel, and you can see the perspectives that they each bring to this. And again, that's really is the community that we're continuing to build and expand. And I appreciate the opportunity. There's no way to summarize everything that went on. Again, this will be available as we'll post the materials and other information. But I do have a few thoughts to share for the benefit of myself and maybe you as well. But, I guess I really do want to say, first of all, again, thank you very much to the hosts and also the planners for the conference, Avalon and her staff. And you've met them, hopefully, Janet and Jess. And they're supported by some of my staff, Carl and Aaliyah. So, again, could not have happened. But I also want to say, I say that because I really feel like the way this has fallen together, for me, it really has told a story over the 2 days. It really has come together. That's not easy to do when you get so many complex ideas and so many complex and different people coming to the table. But I really did feel an arc, and some of my kind of observations are based on sort of what I heard. I mean, I thought today I rambled a few things yesterday, but I certainly thought today was a really good day to sort of take some of the first day's frameworks and really think about the space, what the ocean is. I mean, we really did talk about things about really thinking about the ocean as a place that is activities on the surface and everything we see. So all the things sometimes that's mapped on your GIS. But we heard a lot about it, how it is the water column and it is a dynamic system as well, and also the bottom. So I really feel like we've kind of, we volumized the challenge of what we're thinking about, and really thinking about that in those terms is really important, because I don't think in most individual instances that people are thinking about that connectivity in terms of what an incredible framework it is. And that goes back to the first day in my mind, and recognizing something that I'm hopeful about. One observation, as I said, I think somebody said, I think we're onto something big. It might have been Jesse. We are onto something big right now that we should be extremely excited about. I got involved with regional ocean planning back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and I'm going to tell you that we did not have so many things that excited me so much about what the potential is for the future. When we hear about groups like the Regional Wildlife Science Collaborative, when you hear about the RMI, NYSERDA, the frameworks, with the maturity of the IUCN system. And let me just say, I was on the IUCN National Advisory Committee, and it was not anywhere near its framework about thinking about what its potential really is. And so really thinking about what opportunity is, and the sort of thought I had a little bit is, I think we're now embracing complexity. I think the reality is that the ocean is such a complex place that I think thinking about embracing that complexity as a sense of strength and not a sense of weakness or challenge. So forget the challenge that we're 30 years behind somebody in thinking about systems, but thinking about the reality is that what we are developing and the information and the people that we're bringing around to the table are capable of taking that complexity and making it meaningful to people and what they care about. So that's sort of one of the things that I heard consistently around that, and I got extremely excited about. And so I also got excited about the fact that if you recognize that and accept that and find out where you can bring that complexity in your life, thinking about the examples, to me, the session, I was like, I'm a little bit like all the science stuff, right, a little bit. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like going to the opera. You don't really know what's going on, but you really enjoy it. So that's how I kind of feel about science. It really is like, yeah, I don't know what they're talking about, but if I really sit here and let it wash over me, I do walk away with something that's extremely significant. But so I'm looking at you back there in the panel about the air, modeling the air, water. Oh my God, I have no idea what he's talking about. But I'm going to tell you, when I actually think that sort of, to me, really reflected that really thinking about the ocean as not a place that's apart, but is so integrated into the Earth system, so integrated into everything that impacts our lives. And you can also see that at the more micro level when you think about the Hudson Sanctuary, and think about that as a place of complexity that's framework. And yes, it's specific, and yes, it doesn't think, but it can answer big questions. So thinking about those scale questions is another thing that I heard consistently in some of the science talks and some of the policy courses. So really recognize that no matter which of these spaces you're working in, you might be asking some of the same questions. You're just thinking about them differently, and you're thinking about them with different inputs and what the benefits are. I would also like to think a little bit about this being a very unique place, and that's another thing that really is the challenge. I mean, this issue about the temperature is like no place in the world. The diversity of wildlife, no place in the world. Thinking about what's happening and driving from the economic side of the equation. So let's not kid ourselves. The reality is offshore wind's driving a lot of stuff and the economics of that. And it's really, though, thinking about a future challenge and thinking very much about how are we managing for climate? How are we thinking about this in a future way? So things like models, which sound really overwhelming, are absolutely essential for us managing for the future. I heard a lot of observations about, and I've witnessed a lot of experiences that people feel a little bit constrained by the environmental laws that they have to implement. So they're constrained by that, whether it's BOEM, sometimes like, I got to get this permit out, or the applicant saying, well, I really would like to talk to you about sharing my data, but right now I got to get my permit, you know. And so I think there's a lot of interest, but I also see now some of those walls breaking down. So the reality is that environmental laws traditionally were about managing past problems. The reality is that's not the problem we're confronting in the ocean right now. It is a problem, and it's a consistent one, and we need to think about that. But I do hear this potential about managing for the future. That's the kid part of it a little bit, and thinking about that and thinking about some of those issues. I would like to say a little bit that I think that, you know, the other kind of specific things I'm thinking about is also, we hear a lot about collaboration and co-design. I would say I think we have a challenge in bringing social scientists to the table. So social scientists, really, there is a way of doing that. A lot of these things start out as buzzwords: sustainability, resilience, co-design, equity and inclusion. They seem like buzzwords, but there actually is social science behind it. There is a way of doing that that makes a difference. There is a way that makes communities feel welcome within a space that is deliberate and intentional, and there are folks thinking about that. So something I think we need to maybe front a little bit in future discussions about these issues is some of the social science elements of that. And that social science is also embedded in community. It is embedded in respecting communities in the way that they approach the issues in their lives. So really thinking about that as something that you're doing. You're not inviting them to your table. Stakeholders is kind of like, I don't like that word anymore. It's just like, it's just really sort of, it's all about power shift, by the way, but that's a longer and session in and of itself. But I think there is a lot of concern right now that really thinking about how we're going to bring these additional communities, we're going to bring them to the table because we're going to understand what they value. And so thinking about that, I think we're facing major challenges in the region and major opportunities. Internationally, they're talking about the high-level panel for planning for sustainable ocean economies, that the reality is that we right now in the Mid-Atlantic are the place where offshore wind is happening. That's going to maybe help address the climate issue. We have the reality of sea level rise and climate change and impacts on local communities and the disproportionate impacts, particularly on disadvantaged communities. That's happening in our region. We're thinking about the economy and also thinking about inventive, like there are now hedge funds. I don't understand anything about that, even worse than science and opera. Finance? No idea. So, but I would say that there really is emerging frameworks about thinking about investing a little bit in new technologies, and that's I'll conclude. Well, I'm not entirely conclude. You can indulge me for one more minute, but also conclude a little bit by thinking a little bit more about how we can bring some of that kind of learning to the table around what we do and kind of really proactively incorporate what I do. And I actually can look back to the sessions and take these generalized remarks and really say, I know where they came from when I listened to this particular presentation or that presentation. So this really is embedded in sort of really what we've heard over the last 2 days. So Noah Chesden always says to me that I'm too much of a policy geek, so he wants me to embrace art and science. So I'm going to conclude. Just somebody coincidentally, I also like to embrace circumstance. So somebody just sent me this poem yesterday, so I'm going to conclude with a poem. Is that all right, Noah? Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so the name of the poem is The Gist of It. Some things are big from the beginning, such as oceans. Some things are small and to the end, such as grass. Still a few other things are already old even before we know them, like an old family home. I myself am gradually passing from small to big through the process of aging. All my life, I am a sprig of grass thinking of the ocean as if returning home. So with that, we can figure it out. So thanks, everybody.